Okay, before we begin, consider subscribing and liking the channel. That would be very helpful. And also look at the chapters if you want to jump to different sections of the video instead of looking all of it. There's also room for some comments if you find any points interesting or you want to make a statement about anything we say during the video. Thank you. Hi everyone, slightly different video from normal. This is a travel video. We did a trip, a group of us went on a trip on the ring road in Iceland, and I thought it'd be interesting to do a full video of the actual whole process we went through to get from start to finish on this amazing adventure. Okay, so the video will come in 3 different parts. The first part will be the planning stage. The second part will be the trip itself with amazing photography, hopefully. And the third part will be about the review of what happened next to what we planned and if it all worked out accordingly to what we thought. Okay, so I hope you enjoy. Okay, so some years back I was watching this movie and there's a sequence in it near the middle that actually blew me away. The photography and the scenery and everything was just so amazing that I actually had to research and find out where it was actually located, and I discovered that of course it was filmed in Iceland. And this basically started my quest to actually visit the country, and it took me 10 years, but it's one of the starting points, and the film was The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, and it's the reason I actually now have a bucket list. So one of the things I like doing is planning way in advance. The trip we organised is in September, and we actually started organising and researching this trip in February. We got together, a group of us got together for a drink one night, and we were discussing places we wanted to go, and Iceland popped up, and that's where we started our little bucket list trip to Iceland. So from that point on, we had to do several different things, and it started off mainly looking at options for travel, options for staying, options for car rental, and finally some of the places we will be visiting and where to see them and the locations. So this is what we're going to be covering in this section, and we're also going to give you some tips and advice about things we did that made our trip a little bit easier and more organised. Okay, so I hope you enjoy this section. September in Iceland is known as a shoulder month. It's a month that fits between summer and winter, and therefore has some advantages. One of the advantages is the prices are a little cheaper. Also some advantages are that the weather is not too hot for Iceland and not too cold, so this gives advantages for travelling around the country. And basically it's out of season, or started the out of season, which is the most popular time during the summer. So we chose to do September mainly because it fitted into our work schedule, and also because we wanted to do one of the few things that fitted into this time, and that's the combination of seeing the Aurora Borealis and also going onto the sea and seeing some whales swimming in the sea, which is basically the end of the whale spotting season, September, and the start of the Aurora Borealis season. So this is one of the reasons we chose that. Okay, so now we have the dates organised for the trip and everything. We need to do the next stage, which is to try to get hold of a good price for a ticket, plane ticket. So what we did was we hopped over to cheapflights.com, put in the information, which is Keflavik International Airport near Reykjavik, our hometown, which we're going from, a round trip, the dates we wanted, and the fact we're going to be 4 people travelling. So basically we then looked for tickets, and it gives you the option to do a search for the compared prices. And what we found is we did find a good price actually, which will be shown soon, which is this one here actually. The big problem was it actually arrives in Keflavik airport at 20 past 11 at night, but we could accept that. It's basically going through Austria Airways as well, so that's quite a good reputable company. So we booked this and we made the next step for the progress, which was actually choosing the different locations. Now we have the plane tickets. We needed to discuss the locations we wanted to visit, and that involved trying to find locations on the ring road. The ring road is basically Route 1, which travels the entire circumference of Iceland, missing a few parts, but basically it's a 1,322 kilometre or 821 mile route that goes from Reykjavik all the way around and back again. This is one of the things we're going to choose to go on. So we then spent a little time looking at the different possible places around the ring road that we could dot onto the map that we could possibly visit on that route, and then try to think about how to split it up into different days so we get manageable as a trip in 8 or 9 days. And this is how it worked out. Okay, so now we had a list of all the different locations that we'd like to visit, or the ones we put on our must-see or to-do list, and we had to basically figure out if it was possible to see all these attractions. And what we did next is we went to Google Maps and we basically judged the distances between each location, like I did here, and figured out if it's possible to actually make the full day's itinerary work based on where we wanted to visit. Okay, and that was the next plan. Day one would involve flying in from Austria, and it was quite a long day, and we'd actually end up arriving at about 11:20 at night, so most of the first day would be involved travelling from Keflavik airport all the way up to our first Airbnb, which is in the outskirts of Reykjavik. Day two would involve travelling to Reykjavik city centre from the Airbnb and spending the morning in Reykjavik, and then travelling out east towards Fríðheima, which is a tomato farm, to have some lunch. And then from that point on we would travel slightly north to Gullfoss, and then once we visited Gullfoss to Geyser to see the geysers, and eventually going back all the way down to our Reykjavik and the Airbnb via a different route just for scenic purposes. That's day two. So the plan for day three is to travel up north via the ring road and start our ring road journey, and this would involve coming off the ring road occasionally to go to places like Glimmer Waterfall and Akranes, which are just slightly off the main road, and then travelling up and coming off onto the peninsula to the west to see some of those famous spots from Game of Thrones, etc. And then we'll rejoin the ring road and travel up north further to eventually reach our second Airbnb for the night. Day four would actually involve travelling backwards towards Reykjavik on Route 1 to visit the places we missed by going to the peninsula, and that would include Flumfusa waterfall and Grabrock crater. And then what we would do is travel back north and past the Airbnb again and carry on travelling north to Borgravik Fortress, I hope I said that properly, and then carry on travelling north, cutting off the ring road again to go to the highest settlement, Siglufjordur, and then go to the Airbnb. Okay, day 5 would involve just a quick trip down to a place called Horganes, where we do the whale spotting tour, and that would take most of the day, so the rest of the day will be a short trip, and we try to think about going down to Akureyri, across the thing through the tunnel, and to Godafoss, and hopefully if we've got time after that to go up to Husavik, and then back down again to travel all the way back to the Airbnb for the next day's trip. In between there is a secret place that we want to try to visit and find. Day 6 would involve travelling on Route 1 east towards our next Airbnb, and that would mean travelling to the Rivaten geothermal area where there's a few sites to see, including Diemabugis lava field, Krafla crater. Also, after we pass that, we'll go north to Dettifoss and then come down south towards several other waterfalls and canyons, which is Studafloss and Studagil Canyon, and then moving on toward the next Airbnb, taking in Rudakti waterfall, Route 1, and then ending up at our Airbnb. Day 7 involves moving down Route 1 on the east coast towards our next Airbnb at Hoffi. It seems like an action-packed day, but a lot of these are just on the side of the road and are just stop and stare events. We would like to go to Siedisvudu, where the Walter Mitty movie was located on a very famous road, and also some other places on the route which are basically just several waterfalls, but of course also the very famous Vesterhorn mountain range near the Viking village, and obviously Hoffi, the place we'll be staying for the evening. Day 8 involves leaving Hoffi and travelling down to the Diamond Beach and the Jökulsárlón Glacier lagoons for a little tour over the glacier in a boat, and then travelling west again to meet another waterfall, Svartifoss, and then heading further west to a place called Derhúsús, and then travelling down further southwest to the very famous beach where there's a plane wreck at Hermannesö, before returning to our Airbnb at Vik. Day 9 is our last day and involves leaving Vik and going west again towards the airport, taking in Skoglafoss and the Rutschile caves, which are quite close by to each other, and then moving on to Seljallafoss and then on to the Kela crater. We might stop off at a cave, lava cave, but we don't know yet, and that's not finalised. But anyway, by the end of the day, 10 o'clock in the evening, we have to be at the Keflavik airport to travel home. That's the end of our trip. Okay, so there's 3 basic options for staying around Iceland. They are the most expensive option, which is hotels. Then there's the second option, which is quite favourable, especially during the summer months, which is camping or camper van stays. And then the third one, which is the one we chose, which was Airbnb. Okay, and I'm going to show you how we found the places we did in Airbnb. Okay, so Airbnb is a super easy website to use if you're not registered or logged in there. You simply visit the place. You can look at it as a guest, but you need to be logged in and a member to actually book anywhere. But what you do is you simply try to find the place you want to go. In our case, it will be Iceland. I'm going to put a next year's date so we can possibly find the places we booked this time at the same period of time. Okay, and also the amount of people that are going to be going on your trip. So then you select search, and you have a map of Iceland. It shows you all the different places you can book and those times. It also gives you picture views of everywhere, like so. And for example, this is one of the ones we booked here. Okay, it's up here. We'll be visiting this area because we're going to be doing our trip for whale spotting from this place here, so we thought this was quite convenient. So we booked this place, and you click on it, you check out all the information, whether it's okay for what you need, how many bedrooms, etc., all the different amenities it's got, like so. Okay, and you check the reviews if you're interested in knowing what other people thought. See where it is exactly on the map, and also gives you some idea about the actual people who are running the place. Okay, so that's basically how you review the different places you want to choose. You can either save it for later, or you can book it straight away by reserving it. And the thing about reserving it, it means you can actually pay half of it and half later, and it allows you to choose different ways of paying it as well, like a PayPal or MasterCard, etc., etc. Okay, so that's a great way to actually choose all the different locations you want to stay in. That's how we chose ours. Okay, so the planning stage of our trip has finally met the most important part of the whole process. We've got our air ticket sorted out, we have our Airbnb booked and location sorted. We know some of the places we're going to visit on the ring road, and because it's a ring road we obviously need to drive somewhere, and so the last part of this process is actually booking a car. Now we did this via looking at several websites. These are two of them. Basically there's one called Northbound and there's another one called Go Car Rentals, and we actually chose Go Car Rentals to go with, and we're going to show you how we actually booked our car. Before I start that, you'll notice there's a little section here called promo code, and I'm going to talk about this because there are a couple of websites on YouTube, or channels I found on YouTube, that actually do give you basically codes, discount codes to use in these websites because you watch the channel. Now these are two I found, Iceland with a View and also All Things Iceland. If you look down you'll find sections or videos, or you look through the videos, you'll see ones where they talk about driving, and that's where you'll find the sections where they give you the promo code. So back to this, what you do is you choose your dates you want to go. So 16th, okay. Also make sure you put the times, because it could be negative on the actual pickup and everything. Okay, and just do a quick search. Gives you a full list of what's available site. You need to obviously choose, because we're going to be going on F-roads, we need to choose SUV and 4x4. Okay, doesn't matter about the transmission, our driver is competent in both. Okay, and you'll see that there's a limited amount. Okay, so what we did is we chose this one. It's quite big and it suits our purpose basically. We're not going to go on many F-roads, but we need to just make sure we do if we can actually get on some of them. Gives you the different options for insurance, but you need to make sure you have gravel protection, unlimited mileage, okay, and so forth. Now the there is another one, sand and ash protection, which is possible, but you have to choose it in another section as well, which is a bit annoying. Okay, so what we need to do is just basically go through this. You can choose extras, like if you want an extra driver, okay, which we will. Okay, it goes forward like that. Then once you're happy with all that, you put your personal information in, payment, and you complete, and it tells you where to pick the car up. And nearer the date, it'll give you the lockbox code as well, so you can actually get off the aeroplane and just go to the car park and find your car and pick it. Okay, so that's the whole process of actually renting the car. Again, you can choose whichever website you want, or you can find your own. These are two I recommend, and I'll put them on the screen and in the description below. But we are now fully booked, and I'm going to just show you the full running cost in a minute to show you what the standing is, how much it's cost us each to come on this trip. And the final tip regarding car rental is to use and utilise the car wash facilities at petrol station, because I found out that they are free, so use them as much as you can. Okay, not wanting to look like lost sheep, we spent the next 5 months hopping onto the computer and starting to do a lot of research and gathering information to help us understand how to navigate and have a good trip inside Iceland based on all the information we needed to know about events, places, food, travelling, etc. There are many things to see and do in Iceland, such as some of the tours we're going to go on, which are the whale spotting tour and also the Glacier Lagoon tour. So for this reason, what we did was we researched some of the areas we wanted to go to and see and do, and to be honest, and I give you this advice, it's wise and pertinent to actually think about booking well in advance. We were looking at some cave tours we wanted to go and see on, as well as these two I just mentioned, and whilst I was actually looking at some of the actual times and schedules for booking, they actually ran out, and this was in March, so you need to think about booking way in advance for these tourist attractions. There's one thing for sure in Iceland, and that's the changeable weather, so what we decided to do is to help our progress is to look at some apps that can help us whilst we were there, and also to plan our trips and things, and this is a list of the ones we found. Okay, the first app we're going to be looking at is Iceland Travel. It's a nice little app that gives you things to do, basically. If you click on things to do, it will give you a list of anything you want to look at, arts, culture, museums, drives, etc. You can also check the weather. You can also find restaurants. It gives you star ratings. You can actually tick them off once you've been. It gives you places to look for if you want to sleep somewhere overnight. Okay, quite a very useful app. If you press the map, it also gives you a listing of all the places on the map, so you can actually find local areas where you're actually travelling at that time. Okay, very useful. Another app, if you're interested in weather and travel conditions on the roads, is Færð Veður. It's a combination of weather and traffic, and it gives you a map showing you the closed roads and the open roads, and if you zoom in, it also gives you some warnings, roadworks. Shows you the cameras you can look at. See what's happening. It also gives you the weather Okay, so it's quite a useful app, so think about using it just to check on every day when you're moving around Iceland. The next app we're going to look at is Veður, which is a simple weather app. As you see, I've got Reykjavik there. You can then get a forecast from Reykjavik. Gives you some text there. You can add it to your home screen or take it away, so you can have as many places you're going to be visiting on that. And you can also change the alerts, so you can get alerts during your stay from the actual website. There's actually a weather map as well. So it's quite a useful thing to check the weather on your daily trips around Iceland. Another what's on type app is Nordic Travel. Basically gives you a little map. You can then type in, say for instance, Iceland, search, gives you a map, also gives you a list of all the different things you can do around Iceland. If you zoom in on the map, colour coded, so you can find bike travel, restaurants, places, historical places, art museums, places to eat, etc, etc. Very useful. It also gives you a map in full, yellow pages, so you can find out any of these different things locally and everything. And it's very useful if you basically want to find somewhere quickly in the area you are in Iceland. The next app we'll be looking at is SafeTravel, a fantastic app for moving around Iceland. It basically gives you a map and also then gives you the warnings associated with that area. So for instance, we have all the colour coded. Green means they're open, red means they're closed. It also gives you the warning signs where the trouble is, and basically if you click on it, it will tell you what is happening. Okay, and also it's a great thing about hiking. If you're hiking, you can actually do check-ins, regular check-ins, and also call for an emergency if you feel that you're in trouble. Okay, so it's a great app, very useful if you're travelling around Iceland and you're especially not very comfortable with the roads. Okay, the next app we're going to be looking at is a way to find easy parking spaces in the city you'll be visiting. Works across Europe, but this is for our trip to Iceland. So I'm just going to pop to Reykjavik, and what you'll notice is you'll get the city map. If you zoom in, you'll get these spaces. Some you'll notice with cameras. These are camera operated car parks that scan your license plate. Other ones are just street ones, or you can have lot ones. I think the number in the thing is how many spaces are left. Once you find the place you want, you just click it, you add your payment method, your vehicle, and you're continuing, off you go, you're parking, and it'll record it. If you've used one of the street areas, you just choose that, and you can spin this to choose the amount of time, add your vehicle, your payment, and off you go again. Very useful app. Saves lots of time looking around the streets. Okay, the next app we're going to be looking at is Iceland Coupons. It's a fantastic app if you want to try and save money around Iceland. Most of the coupons are basically for Reykjavik, but you'll find you can either filter your search for different kinds of coupons you might want: lunch, breakfast, restaurants, shopping, etc. Show all of them. But basically what you do is, if you want to, say for instance, do this, you get 20% off, you click, you book the table. As soon as you book it, you have 20% off your bill. Some of these are actually specific to time limits as well. Most of them are actually valid until September the 30th, which is great because that's in our travel period. But it's a fantastic little app. I'd fully recommend it if you want to try and save some money. Okay, another app you could consider using is this one, Aurora Forecast. Basically, it's a simple application that tells you when you can find the Aurora Borealis. And if I move to Iceland, tonight there's a 1% probability, you see. This green area is actually the Aurora Borealis, and it'll get close to the actual area when it's more available. But it has lots of different things. It tells you the forecast probabilities, activity, what's happening with the sun. It can also send you alerts on your phone. Okay, so it's a good app to use just in case you want to look at the Aurora Borealis while you're away. Okay, so another app you could possibly use, which you're probably very familiar with, is Google Maps. Now the good thing about this is if you've got good GPS in Iceland with your data service, you can actually use it to travel around. Now I've just moved to Reykjavik. Now you may want to do a day trip from Reykjavik to somewhere, say for instance like Glimmer Waterfall. And what the Google Maps does is it gives you a route, and you'll also notice here it actually shows you where the camera is. And if you actually go up, it tells you when the worst traffic is. It basically tells you how to go there, directions and everything. Okay, which is very helpful. And you can also do a 360 if you get lost, so you can actually see what the road looks like. That's Google Maps. Now the final app I want to discuss is about money. It's basically a app that I discovered via some research I was doing on YouTube, and several people who were doing videos on their trips to Iceland mentioned this basic app called Revolut. I'm going to show you the interface, but I'm not going to show you how it works, basically because it's obviously sensitive information about people's money. But basically the way it works is you can connect your bank accounts, you can connect your PayPal, and you can transfer money to it, and it gives you a better deal with the transactions in certain countries, and one of those is obviously Iceland. So instead of paying quite a lot of transfer rate to change your euros or your dollars into krona, you just basically walk around with your Revolut on your phone and you just tap it and basically pay for everything, because a lot of the places inside Iceland actually take cards, and so there's no real reason to worry about payments. Okay, as stated at the start of this section, the weather in Iceland can be very variable and it can change within minutes. So one of the things you have to do is be prepared for this, and so this final section is about fine-tuning our itinerary, as well as thinking about the equipment and resources we will need just in case the weather turns a little bit south and we need to do something different, or we need to protect ourselves. So this is what we're going to be looking at in this part. Okay, to wrap up this section of the video, part 1, I thought it'd be nice and useful to actually go through several different things that we found useful to check regarding the visit before we actually went to Iceland, so we could be prepared for any eventuality and occurrence on our trip. We didn't want any surprises, so this is a few things that we thought would be useful for you to know before you go to check out. Okay, so one of the things you need to check when you're travelling to Iceland is where you're coming from to where you're going. So basically, in our case, we were travelling from Greece and we're going to Iceland, and now Greece is part of the EU, and luckily for us, the EU is recognised and accepts Iceland as part of what's known as the Schengen list, which is part of the Schengen agreement, and it allows us to travel there without any basic problems. Now, I'm English, even though I'm living in Greece, and the big problem there was that England went into the Brexit deal, and so I had to check several times, and what you need to do is to possibly visit this website and to see if your country of origin is actually part of the process of being allowed to go to Iceland without any extra documentations or visas. And you just simply click here, just put your details in for your country, and it'll tell you what you need to do to apply and go to Iceland. Now, luckily I found out that England and Greece are both accepted, and I don't need to have any extra additional documentation, just my normal passport. And you can go to this page here, travel documents required. Okay, so when it says here UK citizens must have a valid passport, basically, and it just tells you all the other documents for Greece, and also there's Greece. Okay, and also basically any other country inside the Schengen agreement. Okay, but check your own country from this place here, and just apply for visas or whatever travel documents you need when you're visiting. Okay, on top of that, when you're there, you may be taking your mobile phone, and so what you need to do then is to check to see if your roaming applies to Iceland as well. Now we're in Greece, as I said, and we have Cosmote. So what you can find out here is that anything to do with the European Union is free roaming. Okay, but it doesn't say anything in this list here, but right at the bottom it does say which countries does free roaming apply, and if I click here you'll see that somewhere down here it says Iceland. Okay, so our package actually then covers that, but it's best to check with the actual company instead of just reading things on the internet. So ring your service provider and say, do I get free roaming in Iceland? So that's two things you need to basically check. Okay, now that we have our itinerary plan for the Route 1 ring road trip, and we know the places we're going to be visiting, etc., we wanted to do some finalised research on these different parts. But one of the main things we needed to think about is there going to be any unexpected costs on the actual roads itself? We know about the speed cameras and keeping to the speed limit, because that's a $350 fine each time you speed in Iceland, which is not good. But we want to know if you're law abiding and you're following the rules and everything. Is there any other costs? And one of the things we found out is that there is a toll up north near Akureyri. It's like a tunnel that gets you through a certain part of Iceland and cuts off about 15 minutes of your time if you're travelling from Akureyri to see, say for instance, Godafoss waterfall. Now this is the page. It tells you how much it costs to go through the tunnel. You can go around it, there is a way of going around it, the old route is still available, but if you wanted to cut through it, this is one of the things you can do, is pay for one ticket and go through. Now if you wanted to as well, you can actually book your tickets online, it'll tell you the price for your car and the payments you need to make, and as soon as you do that you get your ticket and you just go through the tunnel without stopping and everything. So that's quite a nice way of doing it. So that's the only one we could find on the actual whole of the ring road, so that's a good thing. Other things we wanted to get actually think about is to see when we wake up in the morning what the road conditions are, and a good thing to do is to visit this website. I'll put this in the description as well, and it's just basically a way to check road cameras on Iceland's road. You can see most of them on this ring road. This is a ring road going around here. So for instance, if you want to check here on the morning you're travelling, you can check and see what it looks like. Okay, so you just basically see the camera live from different angles. Okay, and you can see there's nice days, a bit overcast, but basically it's working and everything's fine. You can check somewhere down south, road's clear, no snow or anything. Okay, tells you from there you go, everything looks good, and so you can possibly then go on your journey. Okay, so that's one of the things you need to do, and it's a simple way to just make sure your route is actually as it should be. Okay, and an additional thing that we figured out we could possibly do is to check each of the sites that we wanted to visit and to see if there's any information how to deal with when you get there and everything. And this involved either checking to see if there's any cost for the car park. I've made a whole list of all the places that we're going to be visiting. The majority of them, like 90% of them, are actually free car parking, but some of them are pay to park. And also, if there's any kind of convenience there, like a toilet, it's basically a €2 cost to actually go into the toilets in Iceland. So you have to consider that as well, and it all mounts up and everything. But one of the things we did find, there is this really interesting website. It tells you about all the different waterfalls in Iceland. I'm just going to skip to the top quickly. And basically what it does is shows you the map where all the different waterfalls are, and it tells you the little things, which ones are easy, which ones are hard, etc. Gives you a choice of different kinds of most popular waterfalls, etc. If I go there, you'll probably find that Godafoss is on one of them. I mentioned it just a minute ago, and Dettifoss Now if you go to Dettifoss, for instance, this is Dettifoss. It tells you where it is, gives you a map of Dettifoss. Let's just see if we can open it up quickly. So if you want to visit, you can actually find it on the map. So it shows you where the roads are and everything. Basically it also tells you how high the waterfall is, if you can access it by car and when, how long it will take to walk to the waterfall from the car park, hiking distance, okay, how difficult it is, and it also gives you a hiking trail, okay, so you can click there and it gives you a GPS hiking trail, so you can actually go and visit it. This is from the easier car park. There's another car park over here which you can walk to. I've been told this side is a lot better, and you can see the elevation, see some photographs, you can actually download it and send it to GPS. So this is one of the things we wanted to do to kind of make sure that the places we do go to are either accessible quickly or in a specific amount of time, so we can make an itinerary, or has some issues that we maybe need to be aware of, like if you need to wear waterproofs, etc, etc. Okay, and the way we can do that is to actually, there's some of these sites are actually available in 360, so we could actually visit this. If you look over here, this is the longest site. You can see the car park there. Okay, if you go this way, this is the site I think we're going to go on. If you look down here, you can see the trail down here, coming here, and if you go up you can see the car park, and this is the easier side to go to. I say that because you can't make both trips to both car parks, because it's about an hour's difference travelling all the way around to the other side, so you don't want to do that. You may be limited by your time, so you want to choose which side you want to go, and you can actually see if it's accessible, if it's the kind of terrain you want to go to, and etc, and prepare for the actual trip. So that's quite a useful thing to do as well. So another tip I could advise you to do is to think about looking at the itinerary you're going to do and check for web cameras for the different places you might be going to. This is interesting because you can actually then check on the day if it's nice weather, what it looks like at the place you want to go to, etc, etc. I found several sites that have Icelandic web cameras. This is one of the places we want to visit because we want to see the puffins. Hopefully in early September there may still be a few puffins around. If not, then what we can do is check the camera every day on our trip, and as it gets close to the time we want to go, we can check to see if there are any puffins. If there aren't any puffins, we don't have to spend the 2 hours driving to the estuary to see if there is any or not. And this is a nice way of doing things, and you can also see that in this page I found. You can see all the different places around Iceland that you may want to visit, like there's Gullfoss, Akureyri, okay, lots and lots of little places that they may not be exactly the place you're going to, but they may be quite close to where you're going to go to. So what you can do is just check and see if the weather's nice there, and basically make the choice of whether you want to visit or not. Like for instance, if we go to Gullfoss. Okay, this is live at Gullfoss. You can see how many people are there. You can see the conditions. You can see that people on the opposite side of the river. So all this kind of stuff, and basically that will make your decision more easy to understand. Instead of driving for 3 hours to a waterfall, it could be closed, it could be foggy, it could be raining, and so you just waste your time. So using these kind of webcams can be a way to actually find out if the actual location is suitable for your trip on that day. So that's one of the things I would actually think about as well. Whilst you would actually observe, I've actually made a list of all the different places I could find that have websites about them, and like for instance, we want to visit Vestrahorn, and the thing is, you can get to Vestrahorn one way and there's just no access to the beach. There is actually one access to the beach, and this is through a road that goes to a cafe called the Iceland Viking Cafe, and you have to pay a fee, about $7 it says here. You can't get onto the beach and take that wonderful photograph that everybody takes unless you pay that fee and go onto that beach. Okay, so this is a thing you should do, is to research as much as you can, all the places you want to go, and then see if there's anything that may inhibit you or become a cost to you to actually visit that place. So this is the last tip I can give you, apart from one final thing I've tried to do. Okay, as I mentioned before, it's possibly a good idea to think about looking at all the places you'll be visiting and see if any of these need booking in advance. Like for instance, two of the ones we're going to go on are this one, the Glacier Lagoon tour, and the whale watching tour from Horganes. Okay, and the thing you find is that these places actually have their own websites, well kept, well maintained, and easy to book from. For instance, if you want to book this, you just basically put how many people, find the dates you want, and you go to the checkout and book it. You get email confirmations, your ticket number, so when you arrive you can basically just get on the boat. It does tell you when it goes from and what you have to do, and also in the email it gives you more advice. Okay, so this is the thing, be prepared to be disappointed if you don't book things in advance. Again, another thing you can think about doing is to research all these different places, like I said, and be prepared for the costs as well, because some of these things are quite expensive. Okay. Okay, the last tip I can give you regarding locations and things is to think about, if you want to possibly eat anything there or stay at a place, to do some research on it. We're going to be staying at a place near Hofi, south of Iceland, southeast, and so one of the evenings I like the idea of going out and having something to eat. Plus, I've heard this rumour that Iceland do these things called pizzas with jam, 4 cheeses with a little bit of jam you can put on top of it. I really fancy the idea, so I did some research and I found this place. It's actually in Hofi, okay, and if you look down, where is it? There you go, just here, number 9. It's shredded blue 4 cheeses with red currant jelly on it. This is the thing I was actually asking for and looking for. And so if I'm in Hofi and we've got some spare time, we can go out in the evening and I can do one of the things that I've heard about Iceland, which is unique about Iceland, pizza with jam. Okay, so this is the thing you can do by researching and being prepared for when you visit the place. You know that there's somewhere you can eat. You can see if it needs to be booked in advance. And also all this kind of stuff. So basically it's well worth looking for places on your routes where you can stop and eat if you're not thinking about having packed lunches or some other form of food to fit. Okay, before I give you the final rundown of the cost so far before the actual trip, I wanted to just discuss some final considerations that we put into place before we actually went on the trip. Now this is based on looking at some videos and also understanding that some of the items we'll be taking with us wouldn't be appropriate for Iceland, because many people say this is a very wet country, and even visiting some of the waterfalls can be quite a wet experience as well, even if it's a sunny day. So what we decided to do is to purchase some extra items to take with us, just in case the event of being bad weather or wet on location. Now this is consisting of waterproof coat. This is 100% waterproof. Basically a lot of trekking jackets aren't waterproof, so you need to make sure it's actually 100% waterproof. And along with that I bought some new trekking trousers, elasticated so it's more comfortable, because we might be walking all day. But on top of that, we wanted to protect it like we protected the waterproof jacket. We got 100% waterproof trousers, because I have literally seen videos where people say they've gone to some of these waterfalls and they are basically soaking wet when they come out. So this is a protection attitude towards waterfalls mainly. After that, we also decided to buy a 100% waterproof day pack. Again, this is because I've heard and seen stories online about getting completely soaking wet, and one thing you don't want to do is any change of clothes you have or items of value that may get damaged because they're wet. You don't want them to be wet, so you get a day pack that's 100% waterproof. On top of that, we wanted to protect our phones when they're at waterfalls, because I've seen lots of people complaining about the phones not working because they get wet because of the waterfalls. So we bought these covers, basically. They're kind of like pockets that you can put around your neck, and you can actually still carry on taking photographs through the plastic, and we've tested this out and it works very well. So this is one thing we've actually bought, and we would suggest you to get just to protect your phone, especially if it's an expensive phone. You can get them in any kind of make and size as well, so not to worry. Finally, I'll be taking my SDLR. So I wanted to protect that again if we go to waterfalls and take pictures. So I bought this waterproof cover for the camera, so it can be tied up to the end of the lens, and everything underneath that will be protected waterproof wise. That comes in a pack of 2, so that's quite useful. And finally, I've seen some videos where they talk about, I think it's Miverton area, there's a big lake there, and if there's some sunshine and hot weather, you can get mosquitoes, and I've seen videos where people are literally walking around with their faces covered with flies and mosquitoes, and this is one thing I don't want because I really hate it. So we've decided to buy some mosquito hat nets. This is quite good because they're very cheap. You can get a pack of 4 for €6 off Amazon, and we bought them, and we're just going to take them along just in case we come across any kind of interference from insects in our walking and everything. So that's worth thinking about. And finally, just a quick consideration. There's going to be 4 of us staying at 4 many Airbnbs, but I'll be using a lot of battery power because I'll be taking photographs and video. So I decided to get a hold of a universal charger. This is a European one from IKEA, and it has 3 USB ports. So I'll be taking this with me because then I can overnight charge 3 different devices and not worry about running out of battery and everything. And finally, the thing that we need to do most and importantly is to prepare for the actual trip. So we want everything to go smoothly, and I've prepared several documents to help us. These can be placed on a tablet or printed out and taken with us. We wanted to make sure that we had things tied down so we knew and could tick them off as we went along. And one of the things I did is I made a packing list so I could make sure that I have everything in my suitcase before I go. Also made a list of the parking prices for the different locations, so we knew as we were going to go to those places how much it would cost to actually park and everything, and if we needed to be prepared to park and pay somewhere. Okay. And finally, the road trip itself, I made a complete list of all the places that we want to go. I'm not sure we're not going to visit all these, but these are kind of our wish list. And I've also made a ticking of a must-see, so these are definite places we want to see, and all the other ones are just additional extra if we can actually make it in the time for each day. And based on that, we made a Google Map route plan for each of the routes we're going to go on, so we knew how much walking distance it was, how much time between different places just in case we were running out of time, and so forth. And this is going to be quite useful because even though we may not actually stick to this, it gives a kind of a little guideline to know how much time we can spend at a certain place and how it affects our day. And I've also done it as a kind of a list, so we know the time we need to leave, the time we need to get to different places, and etc, etc. So this is our final setup for our trip, and 8th of September we're going to be on the plane going to Iceland, and so this will be the next part of the video. Okay, back from our 8-day Iceland ring road trip. Fantastic journey, and all I can say is that we've got lots to show you. Not all of it's video or photographs, it's bits and bobs of both of those, because we didn't manage to do video or photographs on lots of different locations, but we managed to see 86 different locations on the whole ring road, Route 1, and this is what we're going to show you. Later on, after the videos, we're going to talk about the tips and advice we can give you to make your journey a little bit better, so hopefully you'll enjoy this section of the video. Day 1 would involve flying in from Austria, and it was quite a long day, and we'd actually end up arriving at about 11:20 at night, so most of the first day would be involved travelling from Keflavik Airport all the way up to our first Airbnb, which is in the outskirts of Reykjavik. We just arrived in Keflavik International Airport, and we're excited to get started. So this is the start of our journey around Iceland. Okay, see you later. And as we turned off Route 1 after Reykjavik, going off to the visitor centre, we came across this amazing view, and it's well worth seeing if you can. Okay, so we just arrived at our first destination, which is the visitor centre between the two tectonic plates. So just going to have a quick look, and hopefully it'll be a great day. And so we just arrived at our first place, which is the tectonic plate disruption between the American plate and the European plate, and what can you say, it's just overly amazing, this country. Every so often we just wanted to stop on the road and just take pictures, and this is only first hour of our journey, and we've got another 8 days, so it's incredible what we're going to be able to see, I think. But it's just an amazing place to just explore and see all the differences you never see in your own country. Fully recommend. It's well worth visiting the whole area around the visitor centre. There's quite a long path all the way down to the second car park, and so you could actually find time to explore and go down to the river, across to the church and everywhere, and it's well worth it, I can tell you. It's a beautiful place to visit. As you reach the end of the walk path from the visitor centre, you'll reach a second car park, and that's the actual dedicated car park for this beautiful waterfall called Aurora Forecast. Basically you can reach it from the visitor centre or drive there, and it's just well worth staying there for a few minutes just to enjoy the beauty of the actual waterfall. And it was our first waterfall, so we enjoyed it. After you leave the visitor centre and head towards Gullfoss, there is a stop on the way which is really worth it as well, which is this observation deck where you can see some of the tectonic plate disruption in the forms of these cracks in the rock formations. Our next port of call was the Geyser Hot Springs, and it was an enjoyable stop. It was a bit overcast and raining, but and it's very popular. But at the end of the day, it served to show some of the actual beauty of the different landscape variations we have in Iceland, and this was one of them. And we really enjoyed actually seeing the geysers actually blowing their tops, which is great. And we've reached our furthest destination for day 1 on the Golden Circle trip, which is Gullfoss Waterfall. Impressive waterfall, one of the biggest ones we saw in Iceland, and you'll notice in the video it actually consists of 3 very distinct tiers of erosion as the water's basically cut into the rock face whilst it's been forming over the years. Now we loved it, we actually loved it, and you can see it's quite a populated area and you can get really close to the waterfall, and it's well worth visiting. Be aware though that some parts of the actual path to the waterfall can be very wet and you may need some anorak or waterproof covering, so enjoy. On the way back to Reykjavik, we went down an F-road, it's our first F-road, and we encountered a mass amount of sheep. It was actually over maybe 300 sheep coming down the road, and they were being corralled and guided by a riding club, which in itself was a mass of 100 Icelandic horses. It was an amazing sight to see, so we enjoyed the encounter, but we were on our way to another waterfall and it was enjoyable. After the horse encounter, we ended up at the destination we were aiming at, which was Faxafox Waterfall. And just as a quick note, it's one of the few, or if only, waterfall in Iceland with a salmon ladder, and it's a very wide waterfall, but we really enjoyed being there. It's a fantastic place. Okay, so we're on the last stop for today. First day, absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. This is Kerry's Crater. Absolutely fantastic place. We've been 6 places and all of them have been fantastic, and you'll see them in the video, but this is amazing, and we're just ending the day. Okay, as I said, this was the last stop on our way back to Reykjavik, and it's called Kerry Crater, as I said. And one thing to be aware of is the price they state is not for the car park, it's per person, so you need to be aware of that. But it's a fantastic place, and you can actually go all the way around the crater, up and down, and inside the crater itself it's so tranquil and peaceful, it was unbelievable. So I'd recommend visiting that place and then on to Reykjavik if you're doing that golden circle. Okay, fantastic. Our final destination, we ended up at Reykjavik early in the evening, and a good thing to know is if you're visiting Reykjavik from outside, try to visit it on Sunday because the parking is free, so you don't need to pay for it. But apart from that, we had a quick wander around, and our main aim was to basically see the city centre, head to the coast, go down the coast to the Opera House, and then find a favourite food store that we've heard about, which I'll mention now in the video. Okay, we just finished our day and we just came to the world famous fish and chips Ragni to have our taste of the best fish and chips in Iceland, we've been told. So we're going to tell you a little bit more later, but this is the end of our day. We had a good time, lots of fun, lots of things to do. Okay, see you tomorrow. After the most amazing fish and chips, I can guarantee you they're fantastic. We walked around Reykjavik to see the light fade into the darkness, and we even had time to visit a Greek guy that we found who runs a shop called Luca Mas, which is absolutely brilliant. Okay, we're on the road again, second day of adventures, and we're off to the Western Peninsula. Lots to try and see today. Weather's okay, so hopefully we're going to have a great time. So more later. So here we are at our first location, which is this wonderful old Icelandic church next to the sea. Yeah, absolutely amazing. Early in the morning, it's not even 8 o'clock, but you've got to get all your things done, so set this as the first plan, and here we are. Fantastic. These small churches are well worth a visit if you get a chance. There's quite a lot over the island, so if you ever find one, just stop and have a look, because the scenery is great around them, and they're very little quaint little pieces of architecture. Just after you come through the tunnel on Route 1 to the left, there's a small fishing town called Akranes, and we visited it to have a look around. It has a pretty seafront, even during the rainy season, and we found it interesting because we actually drove around the warehouses and found this abandoned boat and some interesting little beaches that we could actually walk on with amazing amounts of seaweed. So it's well worth stopping when you get a chance to any of these little villages. On the road to the next destination, we found it amazing to just look around at the scenery here. The cliffs and the rocks and the landscape's just amazing, and regardless of sunshine or rain, it actually colours it in a beautiful way. So keep your eyes open, and we were just taking photographs constantly. But our next stop was just at the start of the Western Peninsula, and it's called Geithaburg Cliffs, I believe. Now, these are geological structures called basalt columns, and there was a fascinating long column of beautiful geological forms, and it was actually a good place to stay. Be aware that this is actually part of a very bumpy F-road, so be careful when you're driving. Just after the cliffs, there's an amazing volcanic crater. We didn't venture up to the actual crater because it was very windy, but we stayed around the base. Now there's this amazing colour variation between black and red rock formations, and it's well worth a visit if you just go into the cliffs anyway. Returning from the crater on the same F-road, we come across this really cute church which is just before the cliffs. As we were driving along, we felt a bit hungry at this point, and so we found this amazing place to have, it was kind of like a buffet service lunch. The food was actually excellent, so fully recommend if you can find this. It's on my maps. Okay, so enjoy. One of the more impressive waterfalls we found on the way to the Western Fields was this Bjarnarfoss. It's a nice little stroll up to the waterfall itself, and the wind was blowing so hard that the waterfall was actually bending in the wind, so it's well worth looking at. We also got to play poo sticks in the river, which was fantastic. Quick stop on the roadside at a viewpoint to see the famous mountain, old volcano. Fortunately, the weather was not helping us and we couldn't see it, but it was a nice stop anyway. And we actually found out about some serial killers there. Next up, I'm not going to risk pronouncing the name, but it's a gorge, and you walk up to it. It's about a 300-meter walk to the gorge, and then you go inside the actual rock face through a crack, and it's actually quite an amazing thing to actually experience inside. It goes in for quite a way, but it's quite dangerous further into the actual gorge, but it's well worth visiting if you can find it. Hellnar viewpoint was the next stop, and we didn't go all the way to the main viewpoint place because of the wind and the rain, but we stayed at the beach area, which had some amazing lava rock formations, so it's well worth seeing. And a little further around on the south coast is another viewpoint called Longdangra. There's a small car park there. You can walk up to the viewpoint, all nicely paved with this gridded walkway, and it's a nice viewpoint even if it's windy like when we were there, but it's still well worth seeing, and there's two places you can walk to see the different vantage points, so take a quick moment to have a look at this and enjoy the scenery. As you travel north on the peninsula, you can come across Holla Holla crater, and a unique thing is that you can actually drive into this crater. It was very windy on the day we went, but it's still worth looking at, and it's nothing much more exciting than the fact that you can actually sit inside a crater inside your car, but it's well worth a look. As you reach the northern corner of the peninsula, you come across Saxol crater, and this is a nice little crater. Well, it's quite a long walk up the crater, as you can see from the steps, but the day we arrived it was very, very windy, incredibly windy, and but it's well worth seeing because it's got a great viewpoint, great views, and the actual crater itself is made out of multicoloured rocks, lava rocks. So take a trip. If you're good at hiking and you don't mind a bit of wind, you can walk all the way up there. It takes about 10 minutes to walk up, and it's a fantastic place to see. Further along is this place. I won't venture to say the name because it's quite difficult, but it's basically a set of stone fish drying houses. I think they're abandoned now, but it's got a little path that walks around the area, and it's just really, really, really nice place to have a quick trip to. So enjoy and go and visit it. So the next place on our list was a little small village called Helsundur on the north coast, and it's well known for the murals painted in an industrial area. So here we are at one of our stops. It's the murals. I can't remember the name of the town, but I'll put it in the video. But I just want to show you this one because it's quite impressive. So we're just going to look around the rest of them, and then we're going to head off to the Game of Thrones waterfall. So we're having a great day, and the sun's come out, which is fantastic. More lake. As I said previously, most of the murals are located on industrial area next to the seafront, which is quite an amazing place to have a quick walk around. It's all open and free to go to see, and some of them are so impressive. They actually do a competition every year, I believe, and they basically leave the paintings on the walls to have tourists come and have a look at them. But there are some other murals further around the town, so do have a quick drive around the town as well to see if you can find the other murals. Basically, you will see at the end of this video part some of the ones we found. Bugsfoss is another waterfall we found on the way to the major Game of Thrones waterfall, and it's well worth stopping at, even though it's completely ignored by a lot of people, it seems. It's a really cute, sweet little waterfall, but there's many on this peninsula. You'll see on the side of the roads, and this is just one of many, but it's worth looking at. And finally, on the top of the coast, the gem in the crown, basically, of the peninsula, and some of the reasons why people actually come to Iceland is to see the Game of Thrones waterfall and mountain, which is basically called Kirkjufelfoss. It's an impressive place to go. The only thing I found was it's full of tourists, because it's a very popular place. It's paid parking. The parking's quite close to the actual waterfall itself. But you'll find, as we did, you'll have photographers placing themselves in the most awkward places. So if you're trying to get that famous shot from Game of Thrones, then you're going to have to basically either way be patient or be an expert in Photoshop. And like I was, and I removed quite a lot of them using the new tools they have. But it's well worth seeing. It's a fantastic place, and we caught it just as the sun was setting, which was amazing as well. So on the way back to Route 1, we stopped at a couple of viewpoints, and this was one of them, called Færð Veður. And it's a beautiful place to stop at, especially when we'd stopped at sunset. But be warned, it moves into a F road, which is still being constructed actually. So if you want to go back to Route 1, be careful. Last stop on our way to the Airbnb, as the sun was actually going down, there's this beautiful viewpoint as well, called Færð Veður. It's just the side of the road lay-by, but if you stop there you'll see amazing views, and the scenery is just obviously majorly impressive. But be warned, it's part of a F road, as I said, and it hooks around the entire coast, so you've got a long trip, so be aware of that. Okay, we're starting our third day in Iceland. We're actually staying at an Airbnb right next to a fjord. I'll just turn around and show you. The sun is rising, as you can see behind me. We've had a fantastic day yesterday. We managed to get quite a lot done, 16 sites we went to. We've only got a short list today, about 5. But we've got a long drive, but it should be more relaxing, so more later when we show you the results of that trip. I fully recommend this Airbnb cottage we found. It's amazing, even if it's just a short trip down to the waterfront. Well, we had a nice surprise of seeing a seal who popped his head out and said hello. So think about where you're staying and get some amazing views. You tend not to get these views from hotels, so look around. After we left the Airbnb, we travelled north on Route 1 towards Færð Veður, and we took a little detour on this F road, and it went up to this place called Aurora Fortress. Now it's an amazing place, very windy again, but it was a nice day, so that was okay. And it's made out of basalt, basically. You can walk up to it. It's got some steps into the actual fortress itself, and we had a lucky encounter which we actually enjoyed, which was to find 3 wild grouse walking around the inside of the fortress. It's well worth seeing though, and it's an enjoyable day when we actually got there and had a look around. Further along the same road, the F road, is this place we stopped at, which is called Hivitsakur, and it's basically a rock formation that they say is a petrified troll. And everything about the north of Iceland is about trolls and everything. If you go to some of the towns, you'll see trolls are a major feature. So, another surprise stop to see the troll rock. You'll see the video. Slow day today, so this is our second stop after the fortress. It's a nice day, as you can see behind us. It's just absolutely wonderful weather. A little overcast, which helps with the sun. As we turned off the ring road, we came across this little village called Blondus, and we had a cup of tea there, and it's a very nice little village. Not much to see, but it's well worth a stop if you get to go by. Next up on the road north was this church called Grafakirkja. We've come to the oldest church in Iceland, so I'll just turn around. So this is a small church that actually sits in the middle of an empty field. There's a very long walk up to it from a small car park, and if you read the little notes before you go up there, it actually says this is not the original building. It was actually destroyed and rebuilt in a region of around 1910 or something, 1915. But it's well worth seeing, and it's amazing, and it's covered in this moss, and there's a ring of moss and a mound that creates a fence, and we found out that this is actually where they bury people. There's a few gravestones in the actual area, but most of it was actually inside the moss mound. So we're here at our first waterfall. It's just a little bit before a town called Færð Veður, and we're just going to have a quick look around and take in the view. It's a fantastic day though, still, warm, absolutely brilliant. Okay. These orange lighthouses are situated around Iceland, and this one in particular is actually at one of the most northern parts of Iceland, and from here, if it was actually visible, you could actually see the Arctic Circle line of definition. It's worth seeing, and if you're going to Siglufjordur, it's worth popping by because it's only a 5-minute drive through a tunnel, so enjoy. After leaving the lighthouse, you go through a very long tunnel, and when you come out you find Siglufjordur, which is the home of the Trapped series from Iceland, which is very good, well worth watching. Very cute little town with many of the things to see on the sea harbour front, where the ships come in, especially these 3 recognisable prime coloured huts that serve as restaurants and cafes. They're seasonal, so they weren't open. We actually found another cafe around the corner from them, which was actually wonderful. Seafood. There's also a little church you can see, but once we finished up looking around the main area, we moved on to our next Airbnb, which was basically through another tunnel. This was by far our favourite Airbnb. We stayed there 2 nights and used it as a base for some localised trips. Good to have somewhere to come back to at the end of the evening without a long journey. It's based at the end of a road, an F-road, in a town called Ólafsfjörður, and it was surrounded by mountains in a little valley and had a little river we could go and visit, and its own little waterfall next to our cottage, which was fantastic to look at as well. The first night we had a quick hot tub in there as well, which was fantastic, with some complimentary champagne. And overall, you know, the whole experience of staying there was an amazing thing, because as you'll see later on, we had some experiences in an evening event. One of the travelling companions we were with actually found this small hot tub, which is fantastically made out of half a boat, right next door to the actual whale tour session we were going to, and we woke up this day to find out it was an amazingly sunny day, very hot, and we had at least an hour sitting in this hot tub just enjoying the scenery and the beauty of it all. It's well worth it. It's only costs 1,000 krona as well, so pop by. Okay, this is one of the main reasons we came to Iceland, is to do a whale watching tour. So as I did a little bit of research, we chose Horgannes whale watching tour, which is up north near Akureyri, and I chose it because it's the oldest one, and so we hopefully would have a great experience, which we did. And I'm just going to let the pictures speak, because it was actually an amazing, breathtaking experience that I will never ever forget. So enjoy the photographs and the videos. 10-minute drive just past Akureyri. It's a little turning off the main Route 1, and it takes you to a little waterfall, hot waterfall called Foss. Now it's well worth seeing this place because it's free for a start, but also it's just an idyllic place to just lie there for hours on end in the hot tub area, which is on the cliff edge of the waterfall, and you can sit and look at Akureyri opposite the fjord and the beautiful skies around. And it's usually, if you pick the right time of day, empty. We went late afternoon and it was actually quite busy. But if you pick your moments, you'll actually find them actually idyllic, empty hot tub effect in Iceland with amazing views. So well worth checking out and finding. And check my map; it's listed on my map. On the way back to our Airbnb, we chose to stop at Akureyri for 2 hours, had something to eat, so it was an enjoyable little visit. But just before it, there's an actual hot pool, so I just jumped in the hot pool to have a quick go. It was absolutely brilliant. We just popped to Akureyri. This is Akureyri, and this is the famous church of Akureyri. It's actually designed and built by the same architect who did the one in Reykjavik. Okay, so we're just going to go and find something to eat now. That'll end our day, and hopefully we'll see the Northern Lights a bit later, the Aurora Borealis. Okay, more later. Akureyri is the capital of the north, but it's quite a small city centre area, so it's walkable within the 2 hours we had, and we had a quick look around and actually found a nice taverna to have a cod burger. Even though it cost 25 euros, it was well worth it, and so we spent the late afternoon looking around and enjoyed our trip, and then moved back to our Airbnb later on. Up to this point in our trip, it was quite low probability of seeing the Aurora Borealis, so even though we had a really clear night, we thought it wasn't going to be possible because it was very improbable to see it. So we sat inside, and one moment I went outside to take a few photographs of the stars that you can see, and the most amazing thing happened. We just saw a few clouds moving, and instantly they turned into the Aurora Borealis and started dancing around the sky. And we stood outside in our pyjamas for over an hour and a half, just staring at this amazing light show. And it's one of the reasons to go to Iceland, and it was actually well worth the whole effort of seeing the light show. This is a quick roadside stop we found on the way to Godafoss, literally 5 minutes out from Godafoss. After travelling through Dalvik and Akureyri, we went around the ring road and headed towards Godafoss and found this absolutely amazing lake. You can have a roadside stop in a lay-by and go down to the beach and look at the fantastic view. Well worth stopping by if you actually go towards Godafoss from Akureyri. As you can see, you can check on my map, and it's a beautiful place. Okay, second major stop today. We're at Godafoss, which is one of the big waterfalls. Just going to have a look around. It's another amazing day. All the guys are behind me. So we're going to have a quick look here and see some more beautiful landscapes of Iceland. Okay. If you read the history about Godafoss, it's actually a site where Vikings would actually come and throw their icons, religious icons in to free themselves of their Nordic religion and turn to Christianity. Whether it's true or not, I don't know, but it's a fantastic place, and you can actually travel down to the water edge. There's a small path you can go down, it's a bit slippery, but if you take care you can actually get down to it, and it's well worth it, and it was absolutely amazing to visit this place. Just around the corner from Godafoss, actually on the same site, is another smaller waterfall, and near the visitor centre called Gitafoss. It's well worth taking a quick swing around to see this one as well. It was well worth it, and I enjoyed it. I'm not going to risk pronouncing this, but it's a small site where you can stop and have a look at several baby volcanoes inside the lake of Mývatn. Well worth seeing, but be warned, there's lots of flies, so take your hat. Okay, so we're just visiting the lava field. As you can see, we have to be protected because there's loads of flies everywhere, but at least we're happy and safe now. So it's an amazing little place, and we're just going to walk through the rocks to enjoy nature. One thing about this site is it's quite big, and you may get lost because it's a series of paths that wind around the actual lava field, and if you don't follow a certain route, then you're going to find yourself at some point where you don't know where you're going to get back, and so check the map, check the signpost when you come to one, and be aware that, you know, if everything goes wrong, follow your little bit of string back to the starting point. But it's well worth seeing. It's an amazing site if you're looking into seeing lava and the actual reasoning behind Iceland's volcanic past. This one's not for the very faint at heart because it's a long sloping path that travels up the side of the volcano, and it's quite a trek, basically because there's no real stopping points. It can get quite windy there as well, as we've discovered, and again you'll need your mosquito hat to keep away the flies, because there are anywhere around Mývatn there's flies and nits and things, so you need to be careful of that. But it's a great view, absolutely fantastic place to visit, so well worth a stop. Okay. Continue down the ring road, you'll find this amazing site called Hiviri geothermal area. This is a view you get from the actual site. You park up and you go down to the starting point, and there's a fantastic smell of sulphur. It wasn't as bad as I've been told, so I was actually quite surprised with the actual level of smell there, but it's well worth looking at. It consists of several beautifully coloured pools of mud bubbling away, with water bubbling away, all geothermal, so it's obviously hot water and hot mud. And if you follow the paths around, you'll also find these stone stacks that are pumping out steam at such a pressure that you can actually hear the noise coming out of the stone stacks. And it's a fantastic, unique spot in most of the whole of Iceland. There are very few geothermal areas like this. There's a few spotted around. We visited one on the last day, but this was actually a fantastic place to visit. And don't be put off by the fact that people say it smells. It's not that bad, and it's well worth seeing all the colours and the actual nature forming this wonderful island. is one of the places I really enjoy visiting. It's actually an oddity. It's on the way to Færð crater. It's just a shower, basically thermal water coming up from ground has been pumped into the shower, and it just constantly flows. It's really worth stopping at if you find it. Another stop on our little journey. This is Færð crater. In the background. Impressive crater. It's the biggest one in northern Iceland, I've been told. If it was a sunny day, that would be bright blue. You can see some photographs online. Anyway, we've got 4 more stops. The next stop is the world famous Dettifoss. We've got to go and see that because we're in Scotland. So we're enjoying the day, another wonderful autumn day. This site has a 1-minute walk from the car park, so there's not much hassle parking up and taking a look at the place. And it's just past the main geothermal power station that we have in Iceland. It's got a path that you walk around, and it's well worth looking at. You can actually go all the way around it, but it's beautiful if you can catch it on the right day. Okay, so Dettifoss is the most amazing waterfall. It's the most powerful, most awe-inspiring, and be warned though, there are 2 car parks. There's the east side, which we went to, and there's the west side. If you've got a normal car, go to the west side, because the east side has a very severe F-road going to it, and it was quite strong and dangerous at some points, and it takes a while to get there as well on this F-road. So if you want to go and see Dettifoss, make sure you choose the right road for the car you have. But once you're there, like we wanted to go to the east side because I wanted to get as close as possible to the location of where Ridley Scott did his famous film sequence. So we got there, and it's absolutely breathtaking, well worth it. You just take in the actual intense power of this place, and it's a sight to be seen. On the way to our next Airbnb, we actually stopped off at Foss waterfall, which is actually amazing. Basalt column waterfall, interesting to look at, and it's also a little bit difficult to find the opening to the actual road that leads to here, and it's a long path down from there from the Route 1. But it's well worth stopping at, and we really enjoyed seeing it. Okay, so if you're travelling to Stuðagill Canyon after going to Foss, you'll be warned that there's 2 actual areas where you can get to it, and one is from Stuðagill waterfall. You can travel down a 3-kilometre path, and you'll get to the basalt column area, which is very famous if you see the photographs. It was late in the day for us, so we chose to go to the second car park, which is at the opposite side of the river, and it's just basically a step down to a platform where you can actually see the canyon and take the necessary photographs. It's still worth going to, but it was late in the day for us, so we didn't want to travel for 3 kilometres to get to the canyon. As I said, well worth visiting. A quick roadside stop on the way to our next Airbnb before we called it a night. It's a really pretty little waterfall, but we didn't walk all the way up to it because it was getting really late, but we managed to capture some nice little shots. Well worth a stop. It's on the roadside. Last stop for the day was the trip to our Airbnb at Hof, which was on the side of a fjord and a taste of a delicacy. Hang on, let me just... Then you get this ammonia taste. Oh wow. We were very lucky as well, because later that night, when it all gone dark and everything, we found that we had another amazing view of an Aurora Borealis right above our heads across the fjords. So we really enjoyed the second performance of these amazing light shows you get in Iceland. As I said before, we chose to do Airbnb because you can find some amazing rural spots in farmhouses and things like that with amazing views, and this is just one of them. We woke up to see a view across the fjords and it was just breathtaking, so well worth choosing your places to stay. As I said, one of the things that inspired me to go to Iceland in the first place, if you watched the first part of the video, was to watch this film, The Secret Life of Walter Mitty with Ben Stiller. Absolutely fantastic, and one of the parts of the film was this road he travelled down on a longboard to go to Færð Veður. And I wanted to go and see this road, so we've made an effort and found where the road was, and because we wanted to go to Færð Veður anyway, we stopped off at the relevant points where he made this trip down the road. Unfortunately, it wasn't the nice sunny day that he had in the film, but nevertheless, it was well worth actually being part of that experience of finding the actual location that inspired me to go to Iceland in the first place. We travelled down the road and ended up at Færð Veður. So we've come to our first stop on the fifth day, and it's going to be the Walter Mitty waterfall. You'll remember in the film he actually goes whizzing by a waterfall as he skateboards down to the village we're going to go see now. By. Absolutely fantastic. As you can see, it's a steamy misty day. We're going to travel through clouds to get here. We're going to go quite high. It's a fantastic place. Beautiful. The weather's very atmospheric. Okay, more later. We travelled down the end of the Walter Mitty road and we discovered Færð Veður, which is the place we were heading for. It's well known for its little multicoloured rainbow road that leads up to the church. Very misty day we arrived, so it's not as picturesque as you could think it would be, but it's still well worth seeing, and it's very atmospheric with the changes of the weather in Iceland as well. It's situated on a fjord, so you can actually look around the waterfront, which is amazing as well, and there's quite a lot to see in the town, even though it's only recognised for this one road. Take your time and enjoy. There's a very nice little cafe there as well next to the Rainbow Road you can enjoy. This is where Walter Mitty ends up in the film. We had a quick stop off on the ring road to a place called Færð Veður, which is a location for some of the Trapped series. We found it quite disappointing, even though it was a nice little harbour, very atmospheric with a mist and overcast day. But overall, you know, if you don't want to see it, don't worry about sticking it onto your little box. We stopped by because we wanted to, and we enjoyed our lake time there. So we found that Sjalandafoss is not the only waterfall you can walk behind. On the ring road where we were going, we came across Gilsafoss, which is just off the beaten track. It's well worth seeing. It's quite a nice little path walking to it, and you can actually climb down to the actual area below and look behind the waterfall, which was quite a nice experience. So well worth checking out if you can find it. Today was part of the trip where we would stop quite a few times on the ring road just for small breaks to see little sights, and one of these was this place, which was amazing. We were really glad that we actually stopped here. It's called the Bird Watching House, and you'll see it as you travel around the ring road, but you might not want to stop, but I would recommend stopping. It's got an absolutely beautiful scenic view of the fjord, and it was very atmospheric for us on this day. You can actually get inside the house and look at what the bird watchers would look at, and we were actually also entertained by several swans that were sitting on the fjord, which was actually a beautiful thing to see. So it's well worth seeing, and it's just a quick stop, so don't worry about any kind of time constraints you may have. I think if you travel to Iceland, you'd be aware that obviously the weather can change at any time, and we've had 3 or 4 days of really nice weather, and today was overcast and quite windy and rough. But we enjoyed locations we came to, because it gives a completely different outlook on how you see them, and this is one of them. It's kind of a lighthouse next to the sea, and the sea was crashing, this mist was covering the island behind us and everything, and it was a wonderful place to visit, and we just took in the actual environment as best we could on the day, which you have to do in Iceland. You have to just be prepared for anything, really. Gilsafoss is a literal drive-by experience, because you're not actually allowed to stop on the private land where the waterfall is, but it's still worth opening your eyes when you pass the place and see the beauty of the waterfall. We travelled around the coast a little bit further and came to a place that has a little bit of a misconception about it. The place is actually called Green Rock. It's a little small black stoned beach, and it has a little rock formation out into the sea, and a lot of people believe that the actual place is called Green Rock because of that one rock. If you look at it, it's not green at all, it's black. Now, because we were geologists, we actually found out why it's called Green Rock, and it's because if you look closely on the ground, there's several different rock formations, and the volcanic activity millions of years ago actually formed crystallized green rocks inside the black rocks, and it was quite nice to look through the beach and find a few of them, and it was a nice place regardless of the weather or not, so well worth a quick stop. Further around Route 1 on the ring road, we came across this little sweet waterfall, very low level, cutting across the landscape. It's next to the road, so it's not hard to find, and it's well worth a stop because it's a beautiful little waterfall, and we enjoyed being there for a while and moved on to the next site. So take a look and see if you can find it. Well worth it. Okay. Another side of the road waterfall we found on Route 1 was this one called Barkinnesfoss. It was really lovely. I was the only one that actually went up to it to have a look around. It has this amazing skin-like textured volcanic rock face, which was really interesting, and the way the water fell and everything was fantastic to have a quick trip up there. But it's literally viewable from the road, so it's not worth worrying about finding it. It's well worth seeing. As we got close to our final destination of Hoffen, we turned a peninsula point and came across the very famous Halfeness lighthouse. Very recognisable because it looks a little bit like a lighter from some angles. One of those cheap lighters you get in post offices and things. Well worth a visit. A fantastic view from the front side of the lighthouse with the mountains behind and everything. If you catch it on the right misty day, then it's just absolutely awesome to be there. So take a quick look into this one. As I said, it's on Route 1. You'll see it from the road as well, so it's not a problem to stop there. And it's a really fantastic place to just have a quick gaze at the amazing ocean and landscape of Iceland. Another quick side of the road stop to see this place called Hulvlitur Memorial. I believe it's Hulvlitur, don't quote me on that, but anyway, this is all that's actually visible, but if you read the signage, it tells you about the story when a volcanic glacial eruption came down the valley and destroyed a whole farmland, and that's what it's memorial of, so it's well worth a quick stop. Another side of the road stop we found, the car park's viewable from the road, and we made a mistake thinking that the waterfall at the car park was Skutterfoss. However, Skutterfoss is about half a kilometre further up a path, and it's worth stopping. This is a nice waterfall, but it's all built around concrete, so we would recommend you going up the path to see Skutterfoss like we did, because the weather was getting bad, but it's still beautiful because it's Iceland. Okay, so as we travelled east to west, we came through a tunnel, which is basically a mountainous form, which then turns into the place we're actually heading towards. But as you come out of the tunnel, there's a turning to your left which you may miss, which goes down to a place called Stocknes. So keep an eye out for it. As I said, this road is like a slight F road, and as soon as you travel down it all the way to the end, you'll get to a parking space which is at the Viking Village cafe. Now if you park there and pay up, you can go through the barrier and then travel further down to a place called Stocknes Beach area, which is where we went to first, and we basically went on along the dunes and saw the famous Vesterhorn mountain range. We had a misty, cloudy day, so we didn't get the most perfect view like most people do in their photographs you see on the internet, but it was still well worth it, and it's very atmospheric. So we finished up there, came back to the cafe and parked up again, and moved over to the Viking Village. Absolutely fantastic little film set that was never used, but it's still worth going to visit, and we just had a quick scan around it to see what it's like. And so that was the end of our day, and we moved on to our final location, which was Hofni. As I said, the thing about Iceland is you have to try to pick the right day. You can't order the weather, so you have to hope for the best, and sometimes you get the perfect views and sometimes you don't, but the atmosphere is built out of the weather as well, so we enjoyed our stay here, and we moved on to get to our final Airbnb. Okay, before heading off to our Airbnb, we popped into Hofni village to go to Ishusid Pizzeria, and it's for one specific reason. Okay, so I heard that we have a specialty in Iceland, which is pizza with jam, so I thought I'd come stop at this amazing restaurant in Hofn and try some, so here we go. It's an interesting taste, Morley. Fantastic little guest house Airbnb stop we've stayed at in Hoffen. Well worth trying if you find it on Airbnb. Fantastic view, it's just in the middle of nowhere, just outside the actual Vesterhorn location. So we had a great time and enjoyed our stay, and we moved on to the last but one day of our adventure. Our first stop on day 7 was at a place called Jökulsárlón Glacial Lagoon. Now the lagoon is formed from the melt from the glacier, which you can see behind, and it's an amazing view and location to sit at, even if you don't go on the tour, the boat tour, which we did. But I'm going to let the rest of the video play out to show you this amazing shots we got on the boat tour. It's well worth it, even though it's a little bit expensive, but we really enjoyed our time there. On the opposite side of the lagoon on Route 1 are 2 car parks situated either side of the actual mouth entrance to the lagoon, and these are car parks that lead you to the Diamond Beaches. Now we chose the right side because when we came on the road we saw that they had more icebergs forming on the beach there rather than the actual left side, but it can be various depending on the tide, the day, whatever. Anyway, we had a nice time on the beach. It's quite a long beach. We didn't go along all of it, but we got enough to see quite a few of these famous ice forming diamond icebergs, which actually flow in from the actual melt from the lagoon. Again, one of the big issues is that there's lots of people there, so if you want to take nice scenic photographs without people in it, you either have to be patient or learn to use Photoshop. But we enjoyed our stay, and it's well worth a quick visit because you're at the lagoon anyway. As we left the lagoon, we travelled along Route 1 to our next location, but ever present was the side view of the most amazing and largest glacier in Europe to our right, and it's amazing to see when we stopped occasionally to just take in the breathtaking view. But our next stop was actually a place called SafeTravel. It has a great car parking area, quite big, and also a very good visitor centre, and from that point you move on to do a climb up to the actual waterfall. So if you're not interested in climbing up a 45-minute walk hill, then don't go here, but it's interesting to go. Okay, we're walking, this is our third stop today. As you can see, another terrific day weather-wise. I bought all this gear to stay dry and warm, but it's actually almost like a summer's day here. Anyway, we're going to SafeTravel, which is a big basalt columned waterfall. There's a bit of a hike, it's about 13 minutes, but the roads are really well prepared. The track you can see behind us, so hopefully we can pick up some speed and get there quicker. No more later when we get there. Halfway up the path is actually a primary waterfall, so don't get confused, it's actually the halfway point. And a little bit further on you will actually come across this basalt columned waterfall, which is actually amazing, and there's a little platform you can stand on to see and take it all in. So it was well worth the walk up the 45 minutes to get there. Another side of the road stop on the way towards Vik. This was a fantastic little waterfall, low-level waterfall called Fosselar. It was well worth looking at because it's different from the rest of the waterfalls because of the height and everything, but it was just a really pretty environment to actually be in and around, so enjoy the quick stop. Just after Fosselar waterfall there's another waterfall which is a little bit impressive because it comes off a cliff called Fossasidu. Now this is on private land, so the furthest you can go is to drive up a little bit to a fence, and you can park there and just look at it from a distance, but it's still well worth it. It's a beautiful waterfall, and we quite enjoyed taking it all in and everything, so think about stopping there if you've got 5 minutes to spare and enjoy the view. So if you like trekking, this is a nice site if you want to travel down an F road to get to this little car park that goes down this valley. It's well known for certain music videos that were shot there, especially Justin Bieber. It's very pretty, very green. It's about a 2 to 3 kilometre walk along the whole path, along the side of the actual canyon, but we only went halfway. Still, again, it was still worth seeing, and the formations of the rocks are amazing to take in and everything. So if you've got time, go down there and have a look at the actual canyon. As you're travelling west along Route 1, you'll come across this place called the Mossy Lava Fields. Now be cautious because there's a short little car park on the left hand side which you might miss, which we did. And we ended up going down this F-road track, which is actually enjoyable because we actually meandered in and out all these amazing rock formations with this fantastic moss on it. And it took us back actually to the place where we needed to go to find the car park, which was a small enclosed area which actually shows you more detail of actually how the lava field and the moss has grown onto it. Well worth a stop, really enjoyed it. As the sun was setting, we finally reached our destination, which was Vik, where we had our Airbnb. So we stopped there to have a look at the famous church on the hill and do the obligatory photographs. Because the weather was closing in a little bit and it started getting a bit cloudy, we decided to go off to our Airbnb, which is actually situated on the beach of the famous black sand beach. And we parked up and got our stuff out and just had a quick stroll down, but it was getting very dark and it was starting to rain. So it was very moody and enjoyable, but it wasn't the best, but we enjoyed the location. Day 8, our last day, and we woke up to rain. As we didn't see much of the beach in the previous evening, we thought we could have a quick walk down there, but because it was raining, we had to make a quick visit. Still enjoyable, but we saw it in the daylight instead of the dusk, and we then moved on to the rest of our day, which was basically interrupted quite a lot because of the weather. We arrived at Skogafoss waterfall in the rain, and I can tell you, even if you don't have a day where it's raining, you'll need to have waterproofs, because if you walk towards the waterfall like you see here in the video, you will need to protect yourself, and especially your cameras if you want to. It's the tallest waterfall in the whole of Iceland, and it's an amazing, powerful view, but you can also go to the top if you want to walk up to the vantage point up there, but we didn't because of the weather. We just had a quick stay because it was soaking wet, and we moved on. The weather eased slightly when we arrived at the next location, which was Rutschelir Caves. This is one of my favourite places I visited. The rock formation itself was absolutely fantastic, but the actual vividness of the green in the rain was actually a beautiful sight to see. But you can actually enter it. It's actually a hut they use for livestock, which then goes into a rock formation which has a little cave inside it, and it was quite an interesting place to visit. We arrived at our next location, which was Selangelafoss waterfall, one of the famous waterfalls, very touristy, lots of people there. But if you've heard the expression, you have to pick your day, this was not the right day. It was absolutely tipping it down in rain. There was an actual gale blowing, if you can see the small waterfall to the left actually being blown by the wind and everything. We prepared ourselves. We had waterproofs and a poncho and everything, and we made our way to the actual location. It's fantastic to go around the back of the waterfall, and you can actually do a full loop, which is also enjoyable. We did it, but my camera got destroyed, and also we actually got completely soaking wet. So it's good to pick the right day, but if you want to visit it, it's still an amazing sight to see, and I'd fully recommend it. Just around the corner from Selangelafoss waterfall is this other unique little waterfall. There's a path there, it takes you about 5 minutes, and it's actually a waterfall that crashes and cascades down into a little cavern, and it's beautiful to look at. The lighting and everything and the water flow is just a great thing to see. So if you've got a few minutes extra at Selangor, I'd recommend going to see this one as well. After we visited Selangor, we moved on, but the weather got so extreme on the road, we decided that we had to cut out a few places. But we stopped at some places, but it wasn't even worth getting out of the car because the weather was so terrible. But we did end up at Grindavik to have a quite nice meal at this fish house. Well worth it if it reopens. And then we moved on to places like the Eurovision keyboard place, Volcano Man, and the Bridge of Continents, which is actually a great place, but as I said, the weather just destroyed it, so rain stopped play. So our time in Iceland had come to an end. We ended up at Keflavik International Airport where we started, and we sat and waited for our plane. We took off around about midnight on the last day, and it was a kind of a sad but happy time because we really enjoyed our visit to Iceland. We had beautiful weather for most of it. We saw some fantastic sights. The Ring Road is an absolutely fantastic place to actually take part on if you can do it. We did it in 8 days. We saw some amazing things. We were lucky with the Aurora Borealis. We saw it 2 nights in a row. We saw some fantastic shots of the whales, and everything we did was just an amazing thing. So we're going to go again. We've already started planning our next trip, and we arrived home a little bit sad, like I said, because the amazing place, Iceland, amazing place. You will not regret going. So I completely recommend going to see this island. Best plan though is to give a few moments to actually book a few things in advance and be prepared. Okay, so watch my next section of the video and you'll learn how to get some tips and advice on what to do when you visit Iceland. Okay, so the first part of this video, the planning section, was actually done on something like 5 months before we actually went on our 8-day ring road tour around Iceland. And what we found actually after we did the tour was a lot of the stuff I mentioned in the planning actually can be used as advice and tips, because we didn't actually come across any major problems on our journey, and I think it's down to the fact that everything was planned to the finest detail. But we did find a few things we can tell you that we noticed about our journey that could help in the future, or if you want to go on a trip to help you. Now these include things like clothing, food provisions, the Revolut card, car rental, being prepared for the weather, and the parking. I've mentioned the parking before, but I'll mention it again at the end of this little chat. First of all, clothing. We packed suitcases full of clothes, 2 suitcases I had, and we found out that half of it was not needed. We had some stuff for evening wear, just in case we wanted to go out for a meal or something, or do some tours around the villages, but at the end of the day our schedule was so tight, we were on the road all the time wearing the same trekking outfit almost every single day. Now we did find, before we went, we found this stuff called merino wool for the tops and everything, and this is amazing stuff because it doesn't absorb the smell of your sweat. So if you're out and you're actually sweating, it's actually a great thing to have on. And we found that we were actually wearing the same tops for over 4 days without any kind of problem with odours or anything. So it's well worth thinking about doing that, finding some merino tops. But if you can pack everything into your carry-on as trekking gear and wear your boots onto the plane, it was an amazing way to save space and effort in your actual preparation. Saying that, if you do want to take an extra case, we had an extra case booked for the hold. I would recommend that you take as much dry food or canned food as you can, especially if you're doing ring road tours. You can actually use, and staying in places like Airbnbs, you can actually put a lot of pasta, rice and things into your suitcase, and they accept it, especially if you're in the EU, and you can actually use the whole suitcase to actually take provisions to provide you for food. Because one thing you'll notice, and a lot of people say this about Iceland, is the food there is absolutely expensive as hell. Now we, for instance, one example, we went into a bar, had a cod burger and some fries on the side, and it came to $25. Now in my country that would not cost any more than €5, so you can see the difference. So it is worth thinking about actually taking food with you for those moments when you want to snack on the road, or if you're staying over in places like Airbnbs, to actually cook some food in the evening. Another thing I can give you as a bit of advice is use Revolut cards. Now the reason I say this is because it's accepted quite a lot around the world, and it doesn't have such a high transfer rate in your home currency to the actual one, which is krona in Iceland. So basically you have to order it. You have to make sure you get the actual physical card as well, because a lot of places in Iceland don't accept the tap your phone or whatever electronic version. They need you to tap or insert the card into their POS machines. So that costs $6, I think, to get it sent to you. So it's well worth it instead of using your credit card and or your debit cards. Now, one thing we found, because we were on a ring road tour, was that booking a car and renting it, especially in advance, because you can have a better choice of options, is a lot better than actually going on some booked tours. And the thing about booked tours is they take you to the place, you have no effort involved, you sit in a coach, they let you off, you go to see the tour, and then you get taken back again. Now this may be good for relaxation purposes, and you go to see the most touristy places in Iceland, but one of the things we found is when you're going on a car tour, you can go off the main route, you can find things, and we were actually finding and spotting things en route that we just stopped willy-nilly just to take photographs, just to see if it was an interesting place. And we actually, like I said, visited over 80 places on our tour. Now these things you don't get when you go on a book tour on a coach. They'll just go to the main direct area that you've booked for, and they'll take you there and bring you back. So I fully recommend, even if it's just for a day trip somewhere, go and rent a car. Make sure it's a 4x4, because some of these roads are F roads and they're very bumpy, especially the one that goes to Dettifoss on the east coast, parking space. Okay, so that said, the best thing to do as well, to finish this off, is to think about preparing for the weather. Now, we did a quick check of the weather before we were going, about a week in advance, and we noticed that it was going to be stormy, rainy and windy all the time we were going to be there for the 8 days. Surprise, surprise, as you saw the video, it was actually 5 days of brilliant sunshine, or at least nice weather, with a little bit of overcast cloud, and we actually were so surprised because it made our trip well worth it and more enjoyable, because we actually had time to, for instance, sit in a hot tub on Hawkennes Beach for 2 hours in the sunshine, which we wouldn't have been able to do if it was raining and windy. So plan that by looking at the weather, but also be prepared by thinking about sites you can visit if it's actually tipping it down to rain. Like on our last day, the rain and wind was so strong we couldn't get out of the car sometimes. So you need to think, I'm going to sit in a car park, or I'm going to find an indoor venue that I can go and visit. So this is another thing you need to do in your planning section, is to actually think about other locations just in case the ones you want to go to are basically rained off. Okay. And as I said before, the final tip that I've mentioned in the actual videos, places like Akureyri and Reykjavik have parking fees, so you can't park in the city without actually having a ticket in your car, so you've actually paid. You can do this on apps online and on your phone, but it's one of the things we noticed is we arrived on Saturday, and we did our first trip on Sunday to do the Golden Circle, and there was two car parks where you had to pay, but they were closed. And we wondered why, and then when we got to Reykjavik, we did a quick look up and research, and we found out that on Sundays in Iceland all the parking is free. So it's well worth thinking about actually doing anything that involves a parking fee. Do it on a Sunday. Now I've got a list of all the parking fees that we visited. You can find it in the description, a link in the description, so you can find out which sites you want to visit on a Sunday if you want to. And that's basically about it. I couldn't think of anything else that we could help you with your trip around Iceland, but for a start, we enjoyed it so much, maybe because due to the great weather and the fact that we saw whales and we saw the Aurora Borealis twice, that we're planning on going again. We didn't get to see puffins because we were out of season for puffins, so we're thinking of going again in August. And we now know some of the things we need to know to make our trip better. So hopefully this video has helped you, and we wish you the best on your trip if you go on a trip, and enjoy it as much as you can, but be prepared and plan ahead.